Hello, and welcome to Building Hadoop Clusters. This is the final section, Section 8, Hadoop Tools and Processing Files. In the previous section, we examined the Hadoop Distributed File System, or HDFS. We discussed the background architecture and how it works. We then proceeded to download a file and show you how HDFS can distribute that file across the nodes in our Hadoop cluster. We then looked at the Ambari dashboard, which is our main window into monitoring the running Hadoop services. We then covered all of the different dashboards and performance resources. We wrapped up the sections by running a Hadoop service check on the HDFS, which verifies that the HDFS component in our Hadoop stack works correctly. In this section, Section 8, we are going to wrap up our video course on Hadoop with the final application that you will want to use on top of the Hadoop stack. This application is known as Hue, or more commonly known as the Hadoop UI. Hue allows you to put a GUI-like interface on top of your Hadoop components such as Hive. This will allow you to easily load and query tables as well as run other Hadoop components without having to memorize a command line interface. This section is broken down into 3 components. In the first part, we will need to install Hue as it does not come bundled with Ambari Hadoop. We will then discuss an overview of the Hue components. Finally, we will do a sample run where we load a file in Hue, define its schema, and then query it through Hive. In this video, we will begin the processing of installing Hue. To install Hue, we will need to first shut down all Hadoop services, configure files, then download and install the Hue software. Let's get started on the Hue installation. The first thing that you're going to need is to turn off your Hadoop services if they are running. Go to your Ambari server. First, we open a web browser and navigate to the head node and port 8080 to get to your Ambari server. If you've completed your installation and you aren't logged in automatically, go ahead and log in with your admin password, or the password that you change it to, and then we go to the Services tab. Once in the Services tab, you will see a button in the lower left-hand corner, a big red button that says Stop All Services. Go ahead and click that button. No need to worry, we can always turn them back on whenever we want. You will get a confirmation screen. Click OK. Then go ahead and watch as the Hadoop services turn off. This can take about 10 to 20 minutes depending on the size of the machines in your Hadoop cluster. Again, we are using large. Once we have turned off the Hadoop services, we will need to make some changes to the Hadoop configuration files. We can only do this when the Hadoop services is turned off. You first need to edit the core-site.xml file, which is under HDFS services. If you aren't already there, click on HDFS service. You will see a Configs tab. Go ahead and click that. You will see options near the bottom for Advanced to update the custom core-site XML file. We want to go to the custom core-site XML file and add in the Hue hosts and groups. Click the down arrow, then click Add Property. A pop-up dialog will appear, and then you will want to input the key. The first key is for the hosts, and you will want to add hadoop.proxyuser.hue.hosts. And for the value, put in an asterisk. This will allow you to configure the user Hue as a proxy for all other users and groups. The next value that you will want to add to core-site.xml is the groups for Hue. We will add close to the same text that we just added in the key value pair, but replace hosts with groups. Go ahead and click on Add Property and add the line hadoop.proxyuser.hue.groups and then an asterisk for the value. When we use the asterisk value here and previously, it implies that any user or group will be allowed access into Hue if they have a password. You will need to revisit this value when you decide to deploy Hadoop for production purposes, as it can be a potential security risk. You will also see the following two values already defined in core-site.xml with Hadoop proxy user hcat groups and Hadoop proxy user hcat hosts. Change both of these to an asterisk. Okay, now we will need to add properties to the hdfs-site.xml file, which is just below the custom settings of core-site.xml. Here again, click on the down arrow. Next, click on Add Property here for the key that you will need to add. And here you'll want to add in dfs.support.broken.append, and then put in true for the value and click Add. We will also want to make sure that Web HDFS is enabled. If you check under the General tab, you will see a check mark for Web HDFS enabled. Make sure it's checked in your version as well. It usually is by default. Finally, click on the Save at the end, and you should get a pop-up saying everything was saved successfully. Next, we will need to make some slight modifications to MapReduce. Click on MapReduce 2, then click on the Config tab. Go down towards the end of the page, you will see the custom mapred.site.xml file. You'll need to click the down arrow, and then you will need to click the Add Property as well. And for the key value pair, in the key you're going to put in jobtracker.thrift.address, and you're going to have that equal to 0.0.0.0:9290. Click Add. Then click on Add Property again. And this time you're going to input for the key mapreduce.jobtracker.plugins, and that's going to be equal to org.apache.hadoop.thrift.fs.thrift.job.tracker plugin. And notice the case sensitivity here at the end. Finally, click on the Save button to save the MapReduce 2 settings. Next, we will need to make slight modifications to Uzi. Click on the Uzi service on the left, then navigate to the Config tab. We want to add some values for the uzi-site.xml file. Go down to where it says Custom uzi-site.xml file. Click on the down arrow, then Add Property. And then for the key value here, we're going to want to add uzi.service.proxy-user.proxy-user.hue.hosts, and the value for that is going to be an asterisk. Click on Add. You will also need to do the same for the groups. Click on Add Property one more time, and for this time we are going to add in uzi.service.proxy-user.proxy-user.hue.groups, and an asterisk again. Click on Save to save the Uzi configuration settings. And finally, you will also need to make changes to Web HCAT. Go ahead and click on Web HCAT. Go to the Config section, and down to Web HCAT-site.xml. Here we're going to put in Add Property. And for that property, we're going to add Web HCAT.proxy-user.hue. That's going to be an asterisk. And then one more is going to be Web HCAT.proxy-user.hue.hosts, asterisk. We have that set in. And we are all set in terms of having the Hadoop configuration for Hue after we save that for Web HCAT. To summarize, we learned about the Hadoop interface Hue. Before we can start using Hue, which gives us a GUI interface into Hadoop components, we need to install it. This is because Hue does not come packaged or configured with Hadoop by default. In this video, we covered the first half of setting up Hue, and we looked at changing configuration files in Hadoop, which may come in handy later on one of your adventures with big data. Coming up in the next video, we will continue with the Hue installation. We have to install the Hue utilities, make some more changes to the system, and then finally start Hue services on top of Hadoop so we can start using it for our last section.